Delighted to welcome Adam and Shed from Boost and Adam from Xsolla, here to talk to us today all about communities, creating thriving communities. So without further ado, guys, do take it away from me.
Cool. Thank you, Leo. Thank you. And cheers to everyone for coming. It's really great to see you here. We've got a couple of PowerPoints to go through, not too long, about 15 minutes or just over each. And then afterwards, after each session, we can answer any questions you've got on the way. I've got to go first, but if you've got questions at the end for me as well, don't be afraid to ask. So that's all good. Let me share my screen. Okay, so yeah, we're here to talk about thriving communities in a changing industry. And first of all, a little introduction for myself. So, yeah, I'm Adam Phillips. I'm a biz dev over at Xsolla, or developer relations lead, is my official title. And I've been in the industry for 26 years now. I started off in QA, and went on to become a producer on Tomb Raider. And before moving into PR. So PR is where I spent most of my time, about 16 years there. And that's what I'm using today to talk about how we did things over at Square, basically. So my job these days is to use my experience to work with devs on how Xsolla can support devs and publishers. And in a nutshell, Xsolla helps you squeeze more revenue out your project without squeezing the players at all, via different direct-to-consumer revenue streams and other solutions like affiliate networking, to boost your views on YouTube and Twitch and so on. So I'm here today to talk about how to build a community, basically. And so yeah, just a quick history lesson. I think we all know this anyway, but just some bits here to get us started. But much has changed over the years. When I started in PR, I worked with all the major magazines across the world, and it was really tricky to get your game into those pages at times. If they were called things like Tomb Raider, Hitman, or Deus Ex, it was very easy. But if you had a new IP, things weren't so easy because the editors had limited pages to fill and their deadlines sometimes didn't match our own and so on. So the editors were, in a way, gatekeepers, albeit really pleasant gatekeepers to work with. But the slow and sad gradual death of print over the years happened, as we know. But as websites rose to take their place, it became easier to get your game covered. The editors there needed articles hitting sort of day in, day out. And as internet speeds became faster, we saw the rise of things like video on demand, streaming, and social media, all of which completely changed the traditional PR role. And new words started being thrown around, like creators or community, things we hadn't heard of up to that point. And then faster internet speeds obviously enabled digital downloads, and that enabled small teams to create really interesting games that hadn't been seen before. And a lot of them turned to self-publishing as well. And all of the above resulted in a better connected fan base that began to communicate with each other and developers online. And life was really good. And the industry started taking community really seriously, and hiring community managers and things like this, something that hadn't been seen before. And there were no gatekeepers at this point holding us back, basically. Life was really good. But the landscape continues to evolve, as you know, and search engines, they're providing people with an exact answer using AI or other tools. So they're telling you exactly what you asked, as opposed to just a list of articles to click on. And then when you add in the fact that people are using pure AI, not in a search engine, you get the answer you need, without a list of articles, right? And arguably that's better for the user, but it drastically impacts the ability to get messages in front of fans, basically. And I saw a talk recently, that stated everybody, including major gaming websites, are now reporting less traffic, and this is going to have a huge impact. And when you think of this as well, on top of this, there's also thousands of other stream teams releasing games every month. So yeah, what can we do? Um, you know this already, but communities, the answer. Everybody knows this, but some, especially smaller, less experienced teams, might not know where to start. And I'm guilty of this as well. We tend to gravitate back to what we know on a sort of hour to hour basis. So for developers, that they go back to developing their game and not spending enough time or thought servicing their community and building that. Um, but building a following paves the way to success, right? It not only creates sales, but it also makes the media and publishers take notice, right? Leading to more sales in the long run. And there's an important distinction as well to make between a fan and an ambassador. Ambassadors are the ones that are going to help you spread your message far and wide. And I personally, I'd prefer to have a handful of ambassadors over 200, 300 fans. So what steps do you need to do to start? Well, in my opinion, you need to start early, really early, but don't rush. And I think the majority of players, it's true, they discover a game during the run up to launch, and it could be the release of a demo, direct marketing, press, influencers, wherever. But you need to build a following before that stage to help you prepare to step into the limelight. And that following enables you to validate how you talk about your product, how you describe what it is and why it's fun. And it helps you hone your elevator pitch, your key talking points, and gain feedback on early assets that you can also use to help steer development as well. So at Square Enix, we started by creating like a definitive list of similar games and tap into their community to talk about our own title. And this is where you can make early mistakes in this phase and you can learn and adapt. It's a really useful thing. At Square Enix, we used to have big budgets to do focus groups and so on, but obviously smaller studios don't have the ability to do that. But you've got this wonderful sort of resource out there to use, basically. So definitely be tapping into different communities. But yeah, the key takeaway is really to get take time to prepare and get things ready for the masses. And once you're ready, once you know what words are resonating and assets, that's when you, in my opinion, should be creating your social platforms and start posting on there. So make your mistakes outside of your own social channels to begin with. Um, Also, don't rush to make a Steam page. I see this all the time. One of the first things people do is create a Steam page because they want to get those wish lists and what coming in. So you can use any tool, but at Square Enix we used just spreadsheets to track how posts trafficked and assigned like a star rating on how that post is done. The reason we did that is because in months to come, you can sort of zoom out and you can see exactly what was effective and what wasn't. If you're not tracking, you're not putting a star rating or something similar in there, your memory is sometimes a little bit hazy, basically, and you forget actually what you've learned on the way. Um, but start promoting your game and describing what it is on social, on Discord, Reddit, TikTok, wherever you can, and still post inside other people's communities from your list that you created to gather feedback and encourage them to move across to your community. And by doing this, you can work out what players want from your game based on their feedback. And also don't be afraid to ask what they want to see next, what they want from your game. You might not be able to give them everything they want, but it's useful to have that sort of back and forth with them and they feel like they're part of the journey. But like I said, in my opinion, don't rush to make a Steam page. Don't wait too long either. That would be silly. But do take time to work to understand how best to proceed. And you can make a more convincing and effective Steam page if you spend more time in this validation phase rather than rushing your game to market. And it's true, Steam pages can be edited to include new learnings or assets, etc. But what I find is that once a page has hit maybe 100, 200 wish list or whatever, people are hesitant to edit it because it's, quote unquote working. So yeah, take your time to know how best to talk about your game rather than rush, basically. Um, so, you typically get one chance with a player when it comes to following your social accounts or wishlisting your game. Because if we ask ourselves, how often do we visit a game's social channels or a Steam page? And if you're like me, it's likely that you go there once after hearing about the game elsewhere. And if you are excited, that's when you make your move. And if it doesn't excite you, you're really less likely to go back and see if it works for you a second time. So you almost have one shot to impress, really. But by now, via your work with the community, you'll know what's working and what doesn't and why. And don't worry that you don't have something to be wish list straight away. You're busy getting ready for that stage that will hopefully create more wish lists as you go. So gathering those opinions before creating the page prevents you having to sort of scramble and update it or like on a monthly basis or whatnot. You've got something you know that works. But now you have a store page, the real fun begins, and every piece of curated information you release drives people towards a call to action. Um, so sort of in parallel as well, it's time to create like a fully fledged campaign. And I recommend, starting by actually creating a calendar of the year or 2 years, whatever you plan to fill up. Um, and it has to drop at regular intervals, right? It doesn't have to drop every day or every week, but it needs to be regular so people know to come back and, they're getting fed information to motivate them and follow you. If you don't have anything interesting to say, at Square Enix we said maybe don't say anything at all that week then and keep your powder dry for later because the worst thing you can have is filling up someone's feed with something that isn't that interesting, isn't going to move the needle at any point. So sometimes say nothing at all if you think that's going to suit you better. But having a plan is going to serve you much better than creating it on the fly. And you can always add to it as you go, but you need a strong foundation to begin with. And if you'll keep tracking it, keep giving that star rating, you can lean into that content that resonated previously and release it at a regular cadence that you can manage. And at all times, experiment with new approaches, right? You might find something that works for you. And some games are naturally viral just because of their own content. But what we found at Square is if we're not able to create viral posts ourselves, we would jump on viral trends, right? And those posts sometimes traffic really well. But keep tracking and see what's working for you. And if you're sorry, if you're stuck for ideas, take a look at other campaigns and borrow what they're doing, either wholesale or evolving what they're doing as well, and bring those into your project in a way that suits what you're doing. But creating a full plan takes time and effort, and that's a whole nother presentation. But if you're really stuck, there are agencies out there that can help you, so don't wing it. Speak to people like Shed at Boost or something similar to help you on your way. Um, and it's other things to consider. So it's always best to be as transparent as possible. People like that in order to build excitement, educate people, and build trust. And quite early on, you really need to make an early decision. How open do you want to be? Open dev comes with huge advantages, but it takes time. And a warts and all approach isn't for everybody. Um, Other things as well, don't reveal everything at once. Keep some ammo for later because you're going to need that, right? You've got a campaign can last for months, maybe years. So make sure you think about how to keep exciting and educating people over that time. Don't go all guns blazing at the start, but by all means, towards launch, wrap up everything cool that you've done and then put it back on into people's eyeballs, and that works really well. And keep promoting games on every possible platform, every social media account out there, and see what sticks and lean in. But don't disregard some of the platforms that are seen as less popular these days because they will grow over time and they could really surprise you. What we found as well is that even though some numbers on certain social channels were trafficking less, the feedback we were getting was actually much better. So, for example, when Facebook was losing traffic and the user base was getting older, our traffic was less on those channels, but the feedback we got from them was much better. These people were more experienced gamers and were giving us really useful feedback, as an example. So treat each and every follower or commenter on social as part of your team. You can learn a lot from them. Some of them are nice team members, some of them aren't. But you've got to be able to take the rough with the smooth as well. It's all really useful. And if you don't get traction at first, just keep going. You'll not only learn what you need to do in your next campaign, but you'll also get useful feedback for your development itself. Um, Another crucial point is really like who should run your community, right? And you need to decide that as soon as you can, really. Should it be you, another team member, or should you work with someone else, a third party, to bring them in to do it? And the useful thing, if you've been following along so far and doing some of the things I'm talking about, you'll have a fully fledged plan. You know what content's resonating, and you should by now know how long it takes to create each piece of content. And then that's time to put your producer hat back on and bake that time for community schedule into your dev schedule. You're effectively creating a project schedule. as opposed to one that just focuses on development. And this in turn teaches you or shows you how, whether you need to hire someone in to execute this, work with an agency, or so on. It gives you a complete overview of what's going on. But don't underestimate how long this takes. I recommend dedicating maybe an hour every other day or every day if you can to think about community. And that's even if you've got a community manager on board, you should be meeting them regularly and making sure you're taking the promotion of the game as seriously as you are the development. Um, and don't necessarily immediately release a game when it's ready for launch, right? Your project may be, sorry, your dev schedule may be ready, the development is done, but your project might not be ready, right? So make sure you're taking time to get people excited and exhaust all your community learnings and go all guns blazing because you've only got really one chance at your launch. And what I recommend as well is that teams think of at least 3 to 5 things to do after their development is done, really focus down on what works and get that stuff out there in people's eyeballs. If you don't go all out, all guns blazing in community, you will always think back. If you haven't quite hit the numbers you were expecting, you'll always think, should I have done a little bit more work on community to begin with? And the answer is probably yes. Um, so last slide from me. So just a recap, but the landscape's constantly evolving. It will continue to do so, but the importance of community is very much here to stay forever. I don't think that's ever going to go away for obvious reasons. But take your time and don't rush. Test your messaging, learn and evolve before stepping into the limelight, before making a social account, before making a Steam page, and use that knowledge to finalize like a fully fledged campaign on your learnings and bake that into a project schedule as opposed to just a dev schedule. And lastly, then use that plan to establish who is best to run your community. And that's it from me. So let me stop the slides 1 sec. So yeah, anyone got any questions or thoughts?
We do have a question in the
Okay.
Q&A box. I don't know if you can sort of pull it up just in case I disappear again.
Look, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, currently building a community base at the moment for our brand and game, ready for a Kickstarter, all on social media platforms and have a web page currently, and working on merchandise as well. What would you suggest to push out for sort of further reach, sort of based on what they've already got going?
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like you've got loads of good stuff going, and Kickstarter has come back, right? It's really effective again these days. I think it went through a bad patch, but it's back again. And it's good. You're all on all social media platforms. I think keep going with that stuff there. And maybe from the presentation, I think tapping into other people's communities, do it really often. Think of 2 tracks, right? One of where you're going on your social accounts, but also have like a mini campaign of, right, how do I bring game X's people to me, right? What do I need to do that? I think that would definitely be something to think about. And then like an Xsolla shaped answer as well. Sorry to push my own products, but we have something called Partner Network as well that can help you increase your videos and views on YouTube. Basically, it's like an affiliate marketing thing where you have a revenue share with creators. It can be pre-launch or at launch. And you know how affiliate marketing works. They carry a unique URL, so you're getting more people covering your game. The good thing is you get more vids and views, and you're selling games at the same time as well to those viewers as well. So yeah, those are things that spring to my mind at the moment. If I think of anything else, I'll let you know. Yeah.
Tremendous. Yeah, no, no, really, really good point there. Okay. Well, any other questions, do feel free to sort of pop them in the chat. We'll address them at the end. But no, thank you so much, Adam. That was really, really interesting. Shed, are you ready to go next?
Yeah, good to go. I think Adam is going to host my slides for me.
Yep.
So I get to do the classic next slide, please. Moments. Cool. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming today. So I wanted to talk a little bit, which complements a lot of what Adam has said around focusing on your community. So I talk a bit around my experience of sort of developing and building communities but using the two biggest things that I've had the privilege of using in this industry, which is streaming and events. So next slide, please. So a little bit of background on me. I'm Shed. I've been working in games now for 16 years. Started off quite grassroots in '09, working with multiplay. And like any small startup, I had 5, 6, 7 hats. I was the graphic designer, marketing guy, events guy, etc. But ultimately, sort of settled into the role of becoming the head of production and figuring out how to do live stages and stuff at the Insomnia events. And we slowly gained more clients and got bigger and better at what we did after making some truly terrible stages for a while. We got better, and eventually I ended up almost being working for Mojang and Microsoft, heading up the creative direction of the Minecon events, which was an amazing experience. So we took that across Europe and North America. So I was creative director there for 4 years on those events. And then after that, I went over to Jagex, who were another client of ours at the time, who we did the RuneFest events for. And during my time at Jagex, I headed up the creative services, video team, cinematics, the live streaming. And then more recently, in 22, I joined Splash Damage to effectively do the same thing, start up a new department, focusing on streaming and events for the franchises they were working on, which at the time was Transformers and Project Astrid. Most recently, in the next slide, I have co-founded Boost with another industry veteran, Becky Attard, who has been in the industry for 17 years, THQ, Square Enix, Creative Assembly, doing PR comms and go-to-market strategy. So we met at Splash Damage and collaborated on bringing sort of Becky's comm strategy and go-to-market with the streaming and event side of things really effectively. So post Splash Damage, we unified to sort of continue doing that work under the banner of Boost. So that's what we're doing now. So next slide. So I just want to kind of talk about 3 topics and revolving around how to build and solidify your community. So streaming and events are the tools. I want to talk about the content that you can put on those platforms, and then how you can support the team that you'll need to deliver those things. So to start with, on the tools, we're going to quickly look at 2 case studies. So for streaming, we're going to have a little look at what we did at Jagex. So streaming became a key pillar for Jagex. Their franchise was, when I joined in 2017, the franchise was 16 years old. It was still thriving, but they needed ways to continue to engage with their community in an effective way. And the way we looked at doing that was building out a small but effective streaming setup within the offices. Streaming studios always look kind of fancy, but when you principally break them down, you've got an area that you point cameras at and an area that you don't point cameras at. So we had a sofa set where the presenters could come and sit on the sofas, and then a small production area and a gameplay area so that we could do stuff within engine. And the concept was really simple. We would go live regularly, so every Tuesday and every Thursday at 5 o'clock, we would go live to either the old school RuneScape community on a Thursday or the RuneScape community on a Tuesday. And we would stream to where they live. These, despite them being similar games, they actually lived in different places. So the RuneScape community were very much on Twitch, and the old school community were on Twitch, but also on YouTube. So we streamed to both their platforms. So it was important to go to where those communities lived and didn't try and force them to come somewhere where they wouldn't naturally live. The benefit we had of RuneScape was that they were live games. They were constantly involving gas titles with frequent updates. So we always had new things to talk about: quests, weapons, skills, all that sort of stuff. And we used this fixed schedule, but we rotated the content. So for instance, we'd always be live at those times on those days, but one week it might be a Q&A, the next week it might be a developer showcase, the next week it might be something fun. We used to do a thing where we chase down people with like bot accounts and stuff like that, and that was a feel-good show because we'd knock all the bots out of the game. With this comes a level of production. So it wasn't highly polished, but it was prepared. Okay, so we knew what we were going into with the show. We knew the talking points that we were going to have, how we were going to talk about them, and what media assets we did have were all ready to go. And the key thing about what we did every week was that we made it interactive. And this was my big point that I used to, so I should have got printed on a t-shirt at some point, was that if it's not going to be interactive, make it a video. because streaming is more effort, right? You have to put more effort into pre-prod, you have to be on the ball, you have to have everything ready to go, you have to be able to react. So unless you've got that interactivity, focus your energy on making something polished and put a video out, right? But if you've got that community and you want to interact with them and bring them into the fold a little bit more, which is part of what Adam was talking about turning fans into evangelists, into advocates, then that's the interaction that you want to try and aim for. And of course, we recorded everything and put it up as VODs. But I think one of the key things about the format that we had, which is why podcasts work, and the podcasts have gone through the roof, is that especially when you're talking about a game or a complicated sort of franchise like RuneScape with content updates, the longer form content allowed us to have a much more nuanced conversation about what was happening in the game, right? Attention spans are tiny. People read the first 2 lines or the first 3 seconds of whatever you put on social media. But the live streams allowed us to have a much more nuanced conversation about why something was or wasn't going in the game, right? Because community can be a double-edged sword. They have a sense of ownership. We'll get to that a little bit later. So regular streaming was key to building your audience, and the content had to be authentic in order to engage the audience, right? So they were two very strong points. On the next slide, we're going to have a look at why it worked, right? So we saw a lot of growth and community interaction during the sort of 5.5 years that we were developing this live stream, right? The regular content schedule helped players know when we were going to be live. The presenters were community managers or developers. So again, talking to what Adam was saying about having the right people to front your content, right? People already knew and trusted these people, right? They were embedded in the game, they knew what they were talking about, and it brought a real authenticity to the stream. We didn't hire in presenters to try and make it more polished. It was intentionally a little bit rough around the edges. This is the sort of production style that I like, is that kind of Saturday morning big breakfast, showing my age, breaking the barrier between front and behind camera, right? You have a little bit of bants, you make it light. And one of the things, you know, especially when you're being interactive, that actually works really well with your audience. The setup allowed the presenters to be able to see the Twitch chat or the YouTube chat, so they could respond in real time to the community in those things. And again, you know, as we said, for the people who couldn't tune in live, we recorded it all. A great example on the left here is where we mixed up content. So I think this one was just post-COVID, this Deadman tournament. For those who don't know, Deadman was like the foray that old school RuneScape did into esports, which was incredibly popular. And we used our regular live streams to promote the fact that we were going to do a Deadman event. But because it was post-COVID, we used to do these at ESL up in Leicester when ESL UK was still there. We actually set up in the canteen, like that little set that you can see in the middle image there. That was where we used to sit and eat breakfast. So we built a little stream there, and we used our regular content streams to promote the fact that we were doing this event. And as you can see on the bottom image, we got over 50k concurrent for a Thursday night tournament that we ran out of our canteen in the office, right? So if you can go to where your community are and they know where the updates are going to come from and they know something's going to be on, bearing in mind this is very much second screen content and you've got that audience captured, they will tune in, right? If you give them a consistent, authentic way to connect with you and the game, then most of the time I've seen this work really, really well. Okay, next one. So this is a case study on the event side of things. Now, I know this is obviously a huge example of a global brand, but I think the baseline of what we tried to do and why it worked ring true, even if you're, you know, starting out initially or you're starting with a much smaller community. Obviously, Minecraft now is ridiculously huge. The first Minecon meetup was, I think, 2010. I don't think it was 2009. I think it was 2010. I think it was 150 people in Vegas. So it did start small. They literally just met up in a field and went for a few beers and talked about it. That's where it actually started. But I've also seen this work for smaller brands that started doing their events small scale, which includes RuneScape, ironically enough, with the RuneFest events. So Minecon, when it was growing and we started to help out in the early days from the multiplayer side of things, it effectively had 3 major objectives, right? We wanted to bring the game to life for the attendees. We wanted to give the community a chance to unite together under one roof. And the really important thing for Mojang, because of the nature of the game, was to celebrate the community. Minecraft became what it was because of what the community did with it, right? They had loads and loads of mods and stuff that they'd made, and the creativity that came from effectively Infinite Lego was one of the most sort of important reasons why the community grew the way it did. The really important thing that we wanted to be in alignment with Mojang, and then in the future with Microsoft, was that this endeavor was a tool to grow the brand and solidify the community as a global thing. This was very much not a direct revenue making exercise, but it was carefully crafted to try and make it become a cultural moment. Minecon was a celebration of the community and all the amazing things that they'd done with the game. In a time when many games were shutting down UGC, right? Minecraft embraced it, but when I first started playing games, there was a lot of UGC content, stuff, you know, you can make your own maps in Unreal, etc. But that side of things in gaming had seemed to have shrunk over this period of time. So in the areas that we did throughout the event, we had some key features that went through all the different events that we did. So we'd always have an expo or a world where we brought an area of Minecraft to life. We'd have gaming zones, a live stream studio, a main stage, sort of a competitive gaming area. And then we'd rely heavily on the influencers and streamers to do meet and greet stuff as well, which was absolute chaos. That was always crazy queues and things to do at those events. So quickly on the next slide, why did this work for Minecraft? As I said before, it had a huge industry presence and community globally, but in terms of the community, it really did deepen that community engagement. It created a space where the fans felt genuinely seen and heard, and it created that face-to-face interaction between the devs and Mojang and the community. And it showcased Minecraft in this amazing light, right? It legitimized the brand and it had a cultural impact, and it really did have market penetration. You got a lot of traditional media that were covering the shows. The one we did in London in 2015 was actually, I think it was the Guinness World Record for the largest single game fan convention. So that got a lot of media press and stuff just through that. And the amount of content that came out of it, because you allowed all these influencers and stuff to plug into the event, and they did stuff through their own channels. And it allowed us to have a platform to showcase the future of the game. So, you know, we announced Minecraft Dungeons there and all these extra things and stuff. The other side bit that we had, and we had this kind of running joke at one point that Mojang had effectively become a merch company, was we shifted so much merch, it was crazy at the shows as well. So there was a lot of, you know, they really utilized that audience that did come to the shows. So again, the content across both of those platforms, on the next slide, please, bud. There you go, sorry, thank you. So there will always be some things across both events and streaming, right, so that will ring true. So again, we were talking about streaming, helping to grow your audience. The event side of things, not necessarily running your own huge convention. You can also be part of other shows, but using events to solidify communities at any scale to then try and grow it and bring people together is a really powerful tool. But you've got to have content there, right? So there's always going to be these things that are going to ring true that I personally believe when it comes to content. So the biggest one is going to be about being authentic. Okay, your community will engage much better with authentic content from people that are behind your game and know your game. People who are knowledgeable to front your content, and you know, you're not relying on just presenters to be better on camera, right? As I said before, I like this Saturday morning TV, breaking the barrier, kind of casual sort of content where you're just genuine and honest, but knowledgeable, right? Content trumps production value. Start with what you want to communicate to your audience and how you're going to deliver it, right? Whether that's game updates, in-game playthroughs, Q&As, showcase videos, presentations, whatever it is. Focus on what you want to do, what you want to communicate, and how you want to communicate that. And then worry about the delivery afterwards in terms of production value. I've seen so many pixel perfectly produced live streams that are just really crappy to watch because they've just got the tone of voice wrong, or the content's boring, or whatever, right? You know, someone with a 1080p webcam on the top of a laptop with good content will do better than the best studio you could ever build. Take feedback, right? It's not always going to go smooth. The double-edged sword of community, which we'll get to in a little bit, is bringing your community in and having them engage with you on a regular basis and having that familiarity is great for building evangelists, but it also is a double-edged sword because potentially there are going to be times when the community can't get what they want. And they're going to tell you, they're going to let you know that that's not what they want. So you have to have, with this open communication, you have to be able to take feedback, right? Because there is going to be this sense of ownership from the community. And again, the longer form content with streams and stuff allows you to have that much more nuanced conversation, and I've seen that work really effectively. So that is something to factor in. But you're going to annoy your audience at some point. It's just the way it works. You want to work hard to avoid it, but it's going to happen. If anything, these moments will help strengthen your bond with the community, where you're going to have these moments where you're going to redeem yourself, or you're going to say something that is going to break through, and then the community will understand. It's going to strengthen your community to admit when you make mistakes. And the biggest one, I think, that I say quite a lot is that we have to remember that games, especially, we work in the entertainment industry. So if you're having fun then and enjoying the content that you're making, then the audiences are going to feel that as well. Audiences are sponges, right? They absorb the energy that you're putting out there. If you're having fun, they're having fun. If you don't take everything too seriously, there are times when it used to be a case of when we were working on RuneScape, and it's a product, it's a live product, it matters to a lot of people, but there were times when people were getting very, very stressed about some update or other. It's just games. It's a video game. It's going to be okay, right? It's just let's deal with it in a way that makes sense. So with that, you're going to need the team. Next slide, please. Oh, he's on it. Doesn't even need me anymore. So your team will need support, as I said before, about creating content and creating this connection with your audience, right? So you need to equip your team to have the things they need to be able to deal with this, right? So clear messaging, equip the people that are going to be on camera with up-to-date information, key talking points, brand guidelines, so that we can ensure consistency across communication, right? Offer support, emotional, mental health support, regular live streaming. I don't know if you've ever been on the internet, it can be rough out there. So it can be emotionally demanding, and you need to be able to provide access and support for the people who are going to be front and center of these issues. Offer training, right? So whether this is media training or crisis communication training, and even some tech support for some of the systems that they're going to be using online, just give them as much support as possible. And having moderation tools in place, right, to protect against people getting harassed. But I think the biggest thing that you can do for the people who are going to be on stream is giving them the confidence to know that you have their back, right? No matter what situation they're going to be put in, as long as they're following the messaging and stuff that we've put in place, that they have the support of the team above them and around them to have the confidence to deal with the situation. And then, they will continue to do an amazing job. So, just getting towards the end now, just want to talk a little bit around getting started with streaming. So over the years, streaming has become a real pillar of engaging with a lot of communities, especially in the gaming space, and the tech has come on along with it. I think way back when we first started doing StarCraft 2 esports, we were doing it with a thing called a TriCaster, and it wasn't even HD. We had, do you remember the 3 cables you had from an N64, the red, blue, and red, white, and yellow? I think it was in the back of the TV. That's what we were using. And then one of the biggest brands to come along to sort of corner the market was Blackmagic, and they started offering very kind of format locked but affordable hardware to try and get into streaming. But then now there's lots and lots of solutions, but people tend to hear the word streaming and panic and think that you need the kind of streaming studio that you can see in images there. The bottom one is the Jagex one, and the top two is the streaming setup that we most recently completed at Splash Damage. Now, you don't have to go to this production level. As I've said before, right, you need to focus on what type of content you want to produce, right? Will it be mostly conversational? Do you have lots of media? Is it mostly gameplay? You don't have to spend a fortune. to put a studio together. You can do it for a few K if you just want a good setup and you've got good content, right? So things to consider are your presenters going to be office-based? Are they going to be remote? Do you have to have a space where they're all going to be together? Because there's some great software for being able to dial people in from different locations that aren't Zoom. You've got things like vMix, which are great at dialing people in at high quality. What is your budget? What kind of content do you want to stream to your community? And there is some great solutions, both software and hardware, that you can look into. So OBS is the obvious one, great for streaming and recording. vMix is great for media management, and Companion is great for bringing all these things together. Blackmagic is a great hardware supplier. They do stuff at all price points for you to get good cameras and video mixing in there. Elgato do some great budget stuff for lighting, and Stream Decks obviously are fantastic at getting started. But by all means, if you want to figure out what a solution might be for your studio, just reach out to either myself or Becky at Boost. You can find us on LinkedIn, and we can help you get started with the sort of setup that you want to build. And I think that's it. Yeah. So if anyone's got any questions, thanks very much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Ed. That's really, really fascinating stuff. I think you've highlighted some sort of really interesting, maybe high production sort of examples there, but capturing the ethos that a smaller studio could sort of replicate essentially. So yeah, no, really interesting stuff. Obviously, Jagex's community focus is massive, and it's part of their part of their development as well, really. So all of this can sort of really feed into not only sort of boosting the longevity of your title, but also essentially sort of contributing to the title itself. So yeah, fascinating stuff. Really good. We do have a question in the Q&A. I think it's more of a comment really from Aaron here, that the Steam Deck is pretty good for streaming and quick links for development. So that's really helpful. Any sort of any other questions or final thoughts from either of you, in case I get cut off?
No, I think it's been great to chat to people about this, and I think if you want to know more from either of us, just hit us up on LinkedIn. Basically, always happy to help people do things. And what I've noticed recently is, with all the problems in the industry, everyone's clubbing together more, right, and helping each other. So I definitely want to be part of that. And if I can help you on any PR or community stuff, let me know. Or if it's something to do with Xsolla, again, equally, just let me know. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's been great to chat with everyone. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. And I personally think this trend towards moving more towards a more open development communication with communities is actually really interesting. I think insight into the industry in general, people always love to see a more behind the scenes type of aspect on the things they love, right? I mean, I've just finished watching Andor, and they've put a whole series up on how they made Andor, right? It's the same kind of vibe. People love to see the kind of ongoing development of stuff. So there's tools out there now. The internet's come a long way, and audiences are receptive to it. So you just got to position yourself and do it in the right way, and you'll get a lot out of your community for it. I think it builds real bonds.
Tremendous. Well, thank you so much, Ed, and thank you so much, Adam. I'll make sure your details are at the bottom of the video when it's on YouTube. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us for this session. It's been really interesting, and yeah, we should call it there.